What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/IDontWorkHereLady. This story is called, I used to work here, but she never knew. Sorry, this is such a long read, peeps. Figure you would like this, though. So, a bit of backstory to start us off. This was back in 2005. I just learned about this subreddit yesterday. I had started working at a popular game shop in October of 2005 as Holiday Hell. As you can imagine, the Xbox 360 release in November was insane. Consoles and copies of Halo flying off the shelves. In the ensuing weeks after its release, I saw many a return of the Xbox 360 console for the dreaded Red Ring of Death. 9 out of 10, this was caused by people just being extremely stupid with the console. Below is one such story. I should also note that I had a side business of repairing PCs and Xbox consoles, as the store often turned people away for being past the return period, 15 days. So I was making a tidy profit repairing the things for people that didn't want to wait for a warranty return and educating people on how to properly care for their consoles. And here is why this is an IDontWorkHereLady story. My final shift had just ended. I was no longer an employee and turned in my lanyard. The manager, who I was on great terms with, asked me to mind the store for 20 minutes as she needed to empty the registers to make a bank deposit. This was an hour before the banks closed, and the morning rush had been very insane. I readily agreed as I was a helping friend. However, her bank run took nearly 50 minutes, which I was expecting. They get rushed near the end of day. Here's the cast. Me, manager friend, entitled Karen, nice kid. Fred, security. Greg, previously fired D-bag employee. Now on with the main story. I'm in the store, totally alone, and decided to reorganize the PS2 shelves, as customers usually can't tell that it was alphabetized before they start putting things back wherever they felt like. The shelves were along the back wall, which allowed the front entrance to stay in my peripheral vision. In walks what I now know to be a Karen. Cheap gold jewelry that makes a racket I can't even describe, typical haircut, knockoff shoes, resting bench face, and with as much plastic on her body as a Barbie doll. Don't get me wrong, I'm male. The right kind of surgery can really get my attention. She looked like a first year did her work. She has a large plastic bag in hand, which she thunks down on the counter hard enough to dent the cheap wood top. I notice that she has about a 9-year-old behind her. The following conversation begins. Can I help you? Note, I already turned in my lanyard and I never received store-specific clothing, so I'm wearing a black button-down shirt, black slacks, black belts, and black sneakers. Hey, I'm overweight, I like black, very slimmy.
Yes, I want you to exchange this console for a new one. It stopped working.
I actually don't work.
I don't care if it's your department or not. Get over here and help me.
Let me take a look and see what I can do.
Fine, but I haven't got all day.
Do you have the receipt? So at this point, she hands over the receipt, which is badly faded, but I figure out the console was picked up on release day, November 22nd. This was February 20th. Further, on inspecting the console, I notice a square spot directly under it that is sagged and very shiny. I notice entitled Karen is looking at the price-dropped Elite console bundle at the front, and Nice Kid is standing nearby, so I call him over. Hey kiddo, this your console?
Uh-huh.
Okay, can you tell me where you normally keep it?
In the big room.
With the couches and stuff?
Uh-huh.
Tell me, is there a vent in there where cold and hot air comes out?
Yeah, but the game covers it up. Mama says it gets too hot in that room.
At this point, I'm face-palming. Entitled Karen decided to use a $400 box of hot electronics to plug a heat vent. No wonder it stopped working and started to melt. Also, in the bag are 3 other games, besides Halo, all scratched to hell and back. I call over Karen. I'm sorry, this console is way past our return period, and as the reason it stopped working was due to negligence, the manufacturer likely won't fix it either. But I can... Just when I was about to offer my personal services, I was cut off.
What the frick, you lazy piece of crap? Just exchange it for another one. That Elite bundle over there costs less than what I paid for this one.
The price had just dropped.
So I'll take that and replace those games while you're at it.
Now, I no longer worked at this store. In hindsight, I should have closed the door, but with my knowledge of games, I was hoping to at least have some people ready to check out for manager friend when she returned. However, entitled Karen really pushed my buttons and I snapped. Lady, you are obviously very stupid. Her face started getting that lovely color of cherry red. First, our return policy is 15 days. Anything past that is the manufacturer's problem. Second, you used a sensitive piece of electronics to block a heat vent. You're lucky your house didn't burn down. Third, you bought a mature-rated game for an underage child, something we can be fined up to $5,000 for. Fourth, you were just very rude to the only person in town who could have actually helped you out. Now, I am not inclined to. Get out.
You can't talk to me that way. Give me your corporate number. I'm gonna report you and get you fired.
At this point, I figured, what the hell? I've already finished working here. So I write down the corporate number on a piece of printer paper, and then the idea struck me. A few weeks back, we had a new seasonal guy who was just terrible. Rude with customers, knew nothing about what he was selling, and bossed others around. So I wrote his employee ID number on there. I only remember it because he forced everyone to memorize it to pump his subscription stats, even though he never sold a single one. Entitled Karen is screaming at me the whole 2 minutes it takes for me to write all this down. Fred comes running up to the front like a murder was going on.
What in the hell is going on here?
This employee was extremely rude and tried to assault me. Arrest him.
Is this true, OP?
Nope. You know where the camera computer is? Take a look. Last 12 minutes should do it.
Camera?
Do I really need to take a look at that footage, or will you calm down?
She is to be escorted from the building. Here is that information you requested. Have a nice day.
I'll have your job for this.
And stomps out, practically dragging the poor kid behind her. Fred returns about 7 minutes later.
What the frick was all that about, OP?
Grab us some coffee and I'll tell you once manager friend gets back. Oh, and grab her one too. So Fred grabs 3 coffees and returns. Then manager friend walks in about 10 minutes later, spots the console on the counter. Entitled Karen left it behind and gives me that,
"You have a good story, don't you?"
look. I recount the whole thing. Manager friend is getting more horrified by the second, while Fred is practically rolling on the floor with laughter. At this point, I remind manager friend that I am already not an employee, and if it gets her out of hot water, she can say she already fired Greg.
What does Greg have to do with this?
Oh, well, as you can imagine, the lady was rather peeved.
I would think so.
And asked me for the corporate number and my name. So I gave her the number and Greg's employee ID number. It took almost a minute for that last bit to sink in, then manager friend busted out laughing.
Well, Greg was a turd, but that was so wrong.
What do you plan to do with the stuff she left?
OP, can you fix that?
Very likely. Why? To Fred, she says,
I don't see anything on the counter.
Now the ropes were turned on me. It took me a full minute to realize what she just said. So I quietly bundled up the whole mess and took it home. Turned out the only thing it needed was a new capacitor, which my brother installed. I suck at soldering. And a new fan. Ran great for years. Used my CD polisher to fix the games too. All in all, about a $550 severance package. I only remember all of this because she had me recount the tale to any new employees for years. It is burned very well into my memory. And the lesson here, be kind. The person you are talking to may be your only hope. Well, that might be true and all, but hey, listen to this. Leia was nice to Obi-Wan, and he was her only hope, and he ended up dead by the hand of her father. She thought I was a gas station worker, and then a therapist, apparently. No idea if this story belongs here, but I mean, I technically got mistaken for an employee, and then things just kind of went downhill fast. One night, late after work, I stopped by a gas station to buy myself a slushie, which is a daily habit of mine during the summertime. I work at Pizza Hut, and at the time, I normally just wore a dark gray shirt with a design of a pizza on it, blue jeans, and a visor that had the words Pizza Hut on it. Not to mention, my apron around my waist had the Pizza Hut logo on it as well. So it was kind of weird to have this older lady come up to me and tap me on the shoulder and say, "Excuse me, where can I find the 2-liter drinks?" I turn around, empty cup in hand, and just go, I don't work here, sorry. But also, they changed the store around, so I don't know where they put them this time. Cue me going back to trying to get my slushie.
Are you sure you don't work here?
She asks again, and not really getting impatient, but acting as if she were confused. I shake my head, and then she looks me over again and then nods.
Oh, right, you're the Pizza Hut girl.
We live in a very, very, very small town, so most people tend to recognize me as one of the few waitresses that work there, even though I never recognize them. I just smile politely and nod, laughing a bit. Yes, ma'am, I am. And then I apologize, small habit of mine. Sorry about that. Have a nice day. That was supposed to be it. That was supposed to mean that this conversation was done now. It was supposed to be over. But then she stands there for a moment as I'm filling up my slushie, and I start to think that she's just waiting for me to get done with it so she could get a drink. And then she sighs and goes,
Love my life broke up with me today.
I nearly squished the styrofoam cup in my freaking hand because of how out of left field that sentence was. It hit me like a freaking truck. I slowly turn to her for a moment. I'm stunned silent before I manage to let out a tiny and uneasy, "Oh, I'm sorry," before quickly turning to finish filling up my cup, putting the lid on it and grabbing the straw. She sighs again.
Yeah, I just don't know what I'm gonna do without him.
I nod again, going quiet as I slowly begin to make my way back up to the front to cash out. She nods as well and then goes to grab her 2-liter drink. I figured it was done. I thought we were over. And then she comes in line behind me and sighs again.
Yeah, the only thing I'll miss the most is the sex.
I nearly choked on my slushie, to be honest. First, she mistakes me for a worker, and now she's just spilling her entire life story to me? I just wanted to go home. The person in front of me glances back and just gives me a pitying stare as I look back at the lady and just weakly nod. That sucks. She nods a bit.
Well, I guess I don't really need men. I can do things myself.
I felt really unwell and sick to my stomach, being forced to think of how this little older lady can possibly take care of herself. Thankfully, she turned around and began harassing the man behind her. I was able to pay for my slushie, and I gave the cashier a warning glance as I did, and I basically rushed out of that freaking gas station. As I'm sitting in my car, all I can really do is laugh because that was absolutely the weirdest thing I've ever experienced in my life. It's been a couple of years since this happened. I wonder how she's doing because I think about that experience a lot. Well, I'm definitely going to be thinking about that a lot too now. I'm kidding. Or am I? Okay, all jokes aside, I don't like when people do that. Don't open up to me right away, man. It's kind of weird. You know, I used to ask people what's wrong because people post on their stories all the time that they're upset and stuff, and it's like, well, I feel sympathy for them. That's why I'd ask what was wrong, but why do you feel the need to announce it to everyone? I'm not trying to bash you if you do, but I just kind of find it off-putting and I don't know. It's just weird and unsettling, and I'm sure most of y'all can agree, and everyone's gonna deny doing it, but then everyone does it. I don't do it. I'm kidding. I mean, I don't, but it's just a joke. This story's called I Do Work Here, Lady, and you can turn me in if you'd like. Mods, I read the rules and hope I'm not breaking them. Technically, I was not an employee of the university where this happened, but I was working for my father, the professor. The sub's theme of going off on the people over whom they mistakenly think they've got power should apply. My father was a university professor and I was in his graduate program. He usually paid a graduate student out of his own pocket to give exams and grade tests for him, so he figured he'd keep it in the family and pay me. Side note from the captain, that is a horrible cliche to use, but okay. Again, this is not nepotism. He was paying me $10 an hour out of his own pocket so he could stay home and relax. I just read journals while I gave the tests. Win-win. In this case, he wanted me to give an exam for his graduate seminar midterm. He was very clear that he wanted me in there precisely at 7 p.m. to get all the tests down for the 7:10 start time. Grad students are a nervous bunch, was his mantra. I showed up at 6:50 and there was a class in there. At 7, it was still going. At 7:05, it was still going and I was getting nervous. The students waiting to go in were getting anxious. I opened the door and walked in as if I hadn't noticed the professor was still teaching and acted startled and confused, confirming the room number and the time and saying I was supposed to give a test in room 210 at 7:10. The professor curtly said, "I'll be done shortly." I replied, "Oh, okay," and walked out to the hall. The door opened behind me and the professor asked,
Excuse me, what's your name?
"My name is Numbnuts and you may turn me in if you'd like." A big laugh spilled out of the room. Shortly after, so did the students. Our class piled in and we started a few minutes late. As I sat there, I noticed the professor at the door's window like a spawn camper in a first-person shooter. After an hour, literally an hour, I decided to go out and apologize, without reservation or excuse. I made no mention of whom I was giving the test for, I just told her that I was sorry as sincerely as I could. I knew she wasn't going to accept it. She played the "I'm a professor" card pretty hard. Writing off her name, she had 3 last names, so I had to take a beat to remember it, and holding it forth about how disrespectful I was. I just apologized the way one apologizes when trying to keep a job. After the midterm, I went home. I was staying with my parents that year, which made dating one of my dad's students tough, but that's another story. I told Pops what happened, and he immediately got hung up on what she was doing there. There was no class scheduled in that room from 6 to 7. I made sure he knew exactly what I had said and how pissed she was. Pops just went back to what she was doing there. The next day, our family friend, a history professor and the resident troublemaker in the building, got a visit from the professor I pissed off. She asked,
"Is Numbnuts your graduate assistant?"
"No," he replied with a smile, picking up that she was on the warpath and seeing the whole picture right away. "Numbnuts is the graduate assistant of Professor Aching Nuts."
"Oh."
The penny dropped.
"Is he his son?"
Yes, our friend replied. Yes, he is.
"Oh."
Smash cut to this professor multi-hyphenate last name in my dad's office, explaining why she was making his class late for a midterm. You see, this is the best part. Professor multi-hyphenated last name was a professor of Chicano Studies. Chicano Studies was a provisional program, not even having official classrooms, which is why they had squatted in the one in question. Most importantly, the program was subject to annual review by professors in full programs, mostly professors that taught Latin American subjects. The head of the review committee was the professor who taught Latin American politics, and it was, of course, Dr. Aching Nuts. Pops and I had a good laugh after he recounted her tap dancing. I saw her in the hallway a few times after that, but she never made eye contact. She would have been much happier if she had just accepted my apology. Well, honestly, I'm kind of lost on this one. I don't understand why she got mad. Because he was just saying his name, because Numbnuts was the Reddit guy's username. It was kind of like saying OP, but I don't understand. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.